What is the youngest book in the Bible? Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion, and I recently made a video where I talked about the oldest parts of the Bible. But what about the youngest parts? What is the most recently written text that made it into the Bible? Now, obviously, this is going to come from the New Testament. And a lot of people don't know this, but scholars are in pretty general agreement that the majority of the texts of the New Testament were not written by the people whose names are either in the text or have been assigned to the text by tradition. In fact, there are only 8 texts that scholars pretty widely agree were written by the people whose names appear in the text. Those would be the 7 genuine Pauline epistles and the book of Revelation. And scholars pretty generally agree that the book of Revelation was probably written by somebody named John, although definitely not the author of the Gospel of John. Not even the earliest Christians thought that they were the same author. But the rest of the texts of the New Testament are either anonymous or pseudepigrapha. So the anonymous ones would be the Gospels. They never identify an author, and the names that would become traditionally associated with them, scholars agree, were probably secondary additions and probably not the names of the actual authors. And then we've got things like 1st, 2nd, 3rd John, the letter of Jude, 1st and 2nd Peter. These are pseudepigraphic, and pseudepigrapha means false writings. It means that they claim to have been written by someone, but they weren't written by that person. And they were likely written after the death of that prominent figure. So this is probably the case with the pastoral epistles, with Ephesians, with Colossians, probably with 2nd Thessalonians, but definitely with the letters of John, the letters of Peter, and the letter of Jude. Which of all these is the most recent? Probably 2nd Peter, because of all of the pseudepigraphic texts of the New Testament, which were probably composed somewhere between maybe 90 and 120 CE, 2nd Peter is probably the latest because in addition to addressing themes and using language that most scholars date to the early 2nd century CE, it also talks about Pauline epistles as scripture, which indicates that the New Testament had developed to the degree that not only the Gospels, but now Paul's epistles were being considered scripture. So most scholars would say it was probably written somewhere between 120 and 150 CE, and that makes 2nd Peter most likely the youngest book of the Bible. And the fit for this video has been my Oxford hoodie.